Rome, 1492. Behind closed doors, whispers moved faster than prayers. Gold changed hands. Promises were made, and the most sacred throne in Christendom was not chosen by God, but bought. This is the story of the Pope who didn't rise through faith, but through power. Rodrigo Borgia was not born holy. He was born ambitious. Hailing from a powerful Spanish family, he arrived in Rome as an outsider. But he learned the city's dark secrets with terrifying speed. He saw that piety and devotion were admirable, but held little sway in the corridors of power. It was influence, wealth, and connections that truly mattered. Rome did not reward purity. It rewarded cunning. As a Cardinal, Rodrigo embraced this truth. He lived a life of staggering opulence, far removed from any vow of celibacy or humility. He was a man of immense charm and even greater appetites. He openly kept mistresses, most famously the beautiful Vanazade, with whom he fathered 4 children he adored and openly acknowledged. These were sins that would have ended the careers of lesser men. But for Rodrigo, they were merely whispers in the shadow of his growing influence. In a city where hypocrisy was a form of currency, Rodrigo Borgia was becoming one of its richest men. He didn't just play the game of power. He was rewriting its rules, all while wearing the scarlet robes of a prince of the church. Then, in the summer of 1492, Pope Innocent VIII died. The time had come. As the College of Cardinals gathered for the papal conclave, they sealed themselves away from the world, supposedly to pray and seek divine guidance. They were meant to be vessels for the Holy Spirit, choosing the next vicar of Christ. But another spirit was at work within those sacred walls. The spirit of greed. Outside, Rome held its breath. Inside, Rodrigo Borgia made his move. He didn't offer prayers, he offered fortunes. To one cardinal, a lucrative abbey. To another, a grand palace. To his greatest rival, he promised the second most powerful position in the entire church. He moved from cardinal to cardinal, not with a cross, but with a ledger, tallying up the price of each man's soul. 4 mulots of silver were said to have been sent to one cardinal's home in the dead of night, a bribe so blatant it was almost an act of defiance. One by one, promises made to God were broken by promises made by Finally, on August 11th, the white smoke rose from the Sistine Chapel's chimney, signaling to the world that a new pope had been chosen. When the announcement came, there was no surprise on the streets of Rome, only a knowing, cynical dread. Rodrigo Borgia had won. He had bought God's throne. He took the name Pope Alexander VI. The Church, and all of Christendom, expected a shepherd to guide the flock. Instead, they received a king who ruled with an iron fist. Alexander VI wore the papal tiara like a crown and wielded the cross like a scepter. His papacy was not a ministry, it was a dynasty. The Vatican was no longer just a holy city. It became the Borgia family's personal fortress. His primary instruments of power were his own children. His beloved daughter Lucretia became a political pawn. Married off in a series of alliances designed to secure Borgia territory, her husbands disposed of when they were no longer useful. But it was his son, Cesare Borgia, who became the true embodiment of Alexander's ruthless ambition. Made a cardinal against his will, Cesare eventually cast off his robes to become a warlord, carving out a kingdom for himself in central Italy with his father's blessing, his father's money, and his father's enemy's blood. Under Alexander VI, faith was not a guide, it was a tool. Excommunication was a political weapon used to crush rivals. Holy wars were declared to seize land and wealth. The sacred office of the papacy was twisted into an engine of conquest and control. In Alexander's Rome, fear became the new law, and the will of the Borgia Pope was absolute. The scandals were not hidden in the shadows. They were put on brazen display. Rome watched in a state of horrified fascination as the Vatican hosted banquets that descended into debauchery, spectacles of excess that would have made the ancient Roman emperors blush. The rumors were relentless and dark. Tales of poison were everywhere. The Borgias were said to have a favorite method: cantarella, a tasteless arsenic compound that could be slipped into a rival's wine. Cardinals, nobles, and anyone who stood in their way would suddenly fall ill and die, their fortunes conveniently reverting to the papal treasury. Enemies were silenced, rivals disappeared, and a climate of terror descended upon the city's elite. Yet through it all, Alexander VI seemed utterly without shame, completely untouchable. He moved through this world of sin and conspiracy as if he were immune to its consequences. Perhaps he truly believed that the papal crown, the symbol of his authority as God's representative on earth, placed him above all judgment both human and divine. The man who was meant to be the living image of Christ on earth ruled with the cold, calculating cruelty of a Caesar. But the web of poison and power he had so masterfully woven would eventually ensnare him. In the sweltering August of 1503, Alexander and his son Cesare attended a dinner party hosted by a cardinal. Soon after, both father and son fell violently ill. The official story was malaria, a common danger in the Roman summer. But the whispers said otherwise. The poison, they murmured, the poison meant for their hosts had somehow found its way back to them. Caesar, younger and stronger, barely survived, but the 72-year-old Pope was not so fortunate. Alexander VI suffered an agonizing death. His body, it was said, swelled to grotesque proportions, his skin turning black as if the corruption of his soul was finally manifesting on his flesh. As he lay dying, Rome did not mourn. It held its breath, waiting for the tyrant to finally fall. When he was gone, the city exhaled a collective sigh of relief. Eyewitnesses claimed his body decomposed so rapidly that it barely fit in its coffin, a final, gruesome testament to a life of excess. Even in death, his corruption seemed to follow him. The story of Rodrigo Borgia Population de Vie is more than just a tale of a single corrupt man. It is a chilling, timeless warning. It proves a terrifying truth, that power, left unchecked, can corrode even the most sacred institutions. When faith becomes a servant to ambition and power replaces all morality, even God's throne can rot from within. This was not just the fall of a pope. It was a scar left on history, a reminder of what happens when the man who claims to speak for God listens only to the whispers of the devil.